My farm was dying, and Hoa stood there laughing, her voice sharp enough to cut through the morning mist. "Good luck growing anything now, Commissioner," she taunted, oblivious to the irony that would bury her. For 3 years, I'd poured my soul into this land, acres of corn and wheat that fed half the county. I wasn't just a farmer, I was the county land commissioner, a detail Hoa, my neighbor and self-appointed HOA tyrant, had conveniently ignored when she slammed a 6-foot cedar fence across my property line. She thought she'd won, thought her petty vendetta over my unsightly barn would break me. She didn't know I held the power to rewrite her world. It started with a letter, one of those crisp, passive-aggressive HOA notices demanding I repaint my barn because its peeling red paint lowered property values. I ignored it. The barn was functional, not a showpiece, and I had crops to tend. Hoa, a retired lawyer with too much time and a vendetta against anything less than manicured perfection, took it personally. She'd moved to our rural county from the city, expecting to rule our dirt roads like her own private kingdom. When I didn't comply, she escalated first with fines, then complaints to the county, unaware I was the one signing off on them. Her final move was that fence, built overnight by a crew she'd hired, slicing my access to the eastern fields. My irrigation lines were cut, my crops starved, and my livelihood hung by a thread. The morning I saw the fence, I felt my blood boil. It wasn't just wood and nails, it was a declaration of war. Hoa stood on her side, arms crossed, her designer sunglasses glinting as she smirked. "Maybe now you'll learn to follow rules," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. Behind her, a few neighbors lingered, unsure whether to nod or look away. I gripped the handle of my shovel, not because I'd use it, but because it grounded me against the urge to scream. My fields were wilting, I'd lost a third of my corn already. But I wasn't just a farmer, I was the commissioner, and I knew the county's land laws like the back of my hand. Hoa had just made the worst mistake of her life. I didn't confront her that day. I went to my office, pulled the property records, and found what I'd suspected: her fence wasn't just on my land, it violated county zoning by a mile. She'd built it without a permit, without a survey, without even a whisper of approval. I could have torn it down legally that afternoon, but I wanted more than that. Hoa needed to feel the weight of her arrogance. I spent the next week gathering evidence, photos of my dying crops, surveyor reports showing her overreach, and emails from neighbors tired of her HOA bullying. The whole county was watching now, whispering about the farmer versus the city queen. I let the tension build, let Hoa think she'd won. The high noon of our showdown came at the monthly county meeting, held in the old community hall. The room was packed: farmers in work boots, retirees in lawn chairs, kids sneaking cookies from the back table. Hoa strutted in, her heels clicking, expecting to gloat. I stood at the podium, my flannel shirt a stark contrast to her tailored blazer. "Ms. Hoa," I began, my voice steady but loud enough to silence the room, "your fence is illegally built on my property, blocking my access and killing my crops. Care to explain?" Her smile faltered. She stammered about property values, about standards, but I cut her off, projecting the surveyor's map on the wall. The crowd gasped as the red line showed her fence a full 10 feet onto my land. "You didn't check the records, did you?" I said, leaning forward. "You didn't think to ask the county land commissioner before you destroyed my fields?" The room erupted in murmurs. Hoa's face turned ashen. She tried to argue, citing her HOA bylaws, but I held up the county codebook. "Your HOA has no jurisdiction over agricultural land. You've violated 3 statutes, and your fence comes down tomorrow." The crowd roared, some clapping, others shouting. But I wasn't done. I could have stopped there, let the law handle the rest, but Hoa's laughter still echoed in my head. I filed an emergency motion to fine her for every day my crops had suffered, citing economic damages. The county board, fed up with her complaints over the years, approved it unanimously. By the time the meeting ended, Hoa owed me $15,000, and her precious fence was slated for demolition. She stormed out, her heels no longer confident, her sunglasses hiding eyes that wouldn't meet mine. The next morning, I watched from my porch as a county crew tore down her fence. Each splintered board felt like justice, but it wasn't enough. My fields were ruined, months of work lost. I could rebuild, but the scars of her arrogance would linger. I walked through the wreckage, the soil dry and cracked, and found a single cornstalk still standing, bent but alive. It felt like a mirror of my battered, but not broken. Hoa didn't give up easily. She came back swinging, hiring a lawyer to challenge the fines and claim I'd defamed her at the meeting. She even tried to rally the neighbors, painting me as a vindictive bureaucrat abusing power. But the county had my back. The neighbors, tired of her HOA nonsense, started their own petition to dissolve it entirely. At the next hearing, her lawyer's arguments fell apart when I presented the paper trail, her ignored notices, her unpermitted fence, her own emails bragging about teaching me a lesson. The judge didn't just uphold the fine, she tripled them for her willful misconduct. Hoa's face was a mask of disbelief as she realized she'd lost everything: her money, her influence, her pride. The final blow came quietly, a month later. I'd started replanting, working late into the nights to save what I could. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I found a note slipped under my door. It was from Hoa, handwritten, her usual sharp cursive softened by shaky lines. "I'm leaving," it read. "I misjudged you, and I'm sorry. No excuses, no venom, just defeat." I heard later she'd sold her house at a loss, unable to face the neighbors who now saw her as the villain. I didn't celebrate. I folded the note and tucked it away, a reminder that power isn't in the title you hold, but in the choices you make. The farm wasn't the same, not after Hoa's fence choked its heart. I spent weeks replanting, my hands blistered from turning soil that felt like it mourned with me. The county rallied, neighbors brought seedlings, kids hauled water, old-timers shared tricks to coax life from ruined earth. It was humbling, seeing folks I'd only nodded to at market now sweating alongside me. They'd turned on Hoa, not just for me, but for every time she'd find their unmowed lawns or sneered at their rusted trucks. Her HOA was dead, voted out in a meeting she didn't attend, her reign reduced to a cautionary tale. Yet, as corn sprouted again, I couldn't shake the weight of it all. Winning didn't erase the loss. One evening, I found that bent cornstalk I'd seen before, now taller, its tassels swaying in the breeze. It was stubborn, like me, like this land. I sat beside it, the sky bruising purple, and thought about Hoa's note. Her apology was real, but it didn't undo the months I'd spent fighting her instead of farming. I wondered if she'd learned anything, or if she'd just run to another town to play queen again. The neighbors said she lived alone now, her lawyer friends gone, her confidence cracked. I didn't hate her anymore, just pitied her. Arrogance had cost her more than money. Rebuilding wasn't just about crops. It was the community knitting itself tighter. We started a co-op, pooling resources to help any farmer hit by drought or bad luck. I pushed for it as commissioner, using my title not for revenge but for something lasting. The co-op's first meeting was in my barn, its red paint still peeling, now a badge of defiance. We laughed, shared beer, planned a future where no one could fence us out. The kids painted a sign, "Unity Farm Co-op," and nailed it where Hoa's fence once stood. It felt right, like the land was healing, too. But the scars lingered. I'd walk the fields at dawn, seeing patches where the soil still resisted, where the fight had left its mark. I'd won, sure, but at what cost? Nights spent on paperwork instead of with my family, trust in neighbors shaken before it was rebuilt. Victory was bittersweet, a reminder that justice doesn't always mend what's broken. I kept Hoa's note in my desk, not as a trophy, but as a warning: power, mine or hers, could destroy if wielded wrong. The farm's alive again, greener than ever.